Salutations from space and aloha from Earth, friends. This is Gemini Brett, hanging out in the shadows of the light, or the light in the shadows, or however that works. It's time to talk Scorpio New Moon. Let's do this. Let the trees show themselves. Yeah, greetings from Haiku in Hawaii and Maui. It's been nice to unplug for a little bit. Been here for a week now, and I've got one day left. That is, if I make the scheduled plane, which is something I don't usually do when leaving Maui. I find it to be the hardest place in the world to leave. One of the reasons might be because here in Hawaii, when I was born, the lunar node, the North lunar node, which for me is in the sign of Scorpio, was culminating. Yeah, so that's not in my birth chart. I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, but had I been born here in Hawaii, that's a very powerful thing about my personal local relocation. That this is the place on Earth, well, among a vertical line or meridian or line of longitude on Earth, where the North lunar node, which for me is about 22 degrees Scorpio, was culminating. And that reminds me that I should share that I will be teaching astrolocality, like astrocartography, local space astrology, the geodetic map, teaching the astronomy of astrolocality. Why is the chart different in Hawaii than it is in Boston or California or whatever that may be? Anyway, a reminder that I should share that I will be teaching astrolocality at the OPA conference next year. And before this thing's over, I'll try to find a website to share, because it just launched today, I believe, like right now. It's the right time for the planets aligning to announce this new happening. The OPA conferences are amazing in that it's not just short presentations from people like most astrology conferences offer, although most astrology conferences also offer like a pre-conference workshops and post-conference workshops. That's kind of the typical model, which is great. But the way that the OPA thing works is that while there are some presentations, some like chunks of presentations on a theme, most of the conference is you sitting with one track leader. And so I'll be a track leader for the OPA conference next year, and I'll be teaching astrolocality. So anyway, it's a powerful thing to go to these places on Earth, or to bring them to you, where planets were rising or reaching or resting or rooting, and that I would say includes the nodes of the moon. In fact, one of my personal astrocartography antidotes is that, as I shared here on Maui, the North lunar node was culminating in the moment of my birth, the Scorpio North node. And the South lunar node on the other side of the world runs through, its culmination points runs through Romania, where my beloved Anna is from. And I met her here, where my North node culminates, and she's from a place where my South node culminates, and therefore the North node's at the roots. And so, yeah, it's a tricky time to teach astrolocality, right? Because people aren't traveling so much. I mean, very fortunate to have had this opportunity to get away and come here to Maui at this time, which has always been, during my journey, a very powerful place of learning, of reset, and much more. So why teach astrolocality if we can't travel to these power places on Earth that are shown in these wonderful astro maps that we can create with astro software today? Because you can bring these places to you. You can connect with people who sometimes are, I think, sent by the power of a place, as I have in sharing that personal antidote of mine. Um, Antidote, huh? Anyway, right, that just reminds me, I want to talk about magic, but let me finish this flow first. You can connect to these powerful places by tuning into their shamanic traditions, their myths, right? You can connect to the musicians of a land, the music of a land, right? If you've got, I don't know, Jupiter rising in Jamaica in the moment of your birth, you better go sit at the feet of the great guru Bob Marley, which of course today we can only do through his many amazing recordings. You see what I mean? And it's often been the case when I connect with somebody that the things that they love come from a place which is indicated through their relocational astrology, like astrocartography or local space, or people that they've met, significant people in their lives, or I've always wanted to go to that place, or whatever. So anyway, I love teaching that language. It's one of my great passions astrologically in the last couple years, not only because it is so astronomical, and it very much is, but also because it is just so absolutely magical and strange, right? Which is, I think, a thing we can say about all branches of this cosmic tree that today we call astrology. So before I leave that contents, yeah, let me see here, and I'll find a page to share with you of the coming 2021 Organization for Professional Astrology Conference, which, yes, is a virtual conference, given that things are all crazy locked down. And I'm sorry to say that in the crystal ball that I read called astrology charts, I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. So here you see the 2021 virtual conference for OPA. You can see it at this URL I've highlighted above. April 22nd to 27th, 2021. And you can read all about the conference and the themes and that here. And then you can also tune into the many different tracks that are being taught. Immersion tracks. There are 15 of these tracks, and again, the track that I will be teaching is on astro locality, techniques like astrocartography, local space, the geodetic map, and much more. Cyclocartography. Let's get into that another time. I think while we're online, let me show you the Cosmic Intelligence Agency's page. Because I'm happy to say that very soon, like at the end of this month, I will be part of the CIA, the true CIA, the Cosmic Intelligence Agency's Brave New World Summit. Astrologers from all over the globe chiming in about what's coming ahead. Mostly focused on the year 2021, although I saw that some of my peers are reaching out for a few years to come, and just some of my favorite astrologers. So let me scroll down and you can just see some of these brilliant cosmic beings like Maurice and Tad and Rose and more. And this is the day I will be connecting with those three on November 28th. That might be Australia, and then it's 27th. I don't know, but you can do your conversions, and you can, let me just continue to scroll. So a lot of wonderful agents of cosmic intelligence broadcasting about the brave new world. My particular subject will be on the elemental shift within the meta retrograde of the Mercury cycles, something I first learned at the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School, and then took further in my study with Gary Caton and his wonderful book. So Mercury has been doing his retrogrades in the signs of water for all of 2019 and 2020, and it's going to meta retrograde from water signs back to air signs in the year of 2021 and 2022. So what does this mean to move from kind of the watery way of conscious into the air? Yeah, how can we bring water to the air and all that? So we'll talk about moisture, we'll talk about thought and such. And it's a wonderful time to be presenting that. So let me get to the topic for today, which is here, the Scorpio New Moon and the Gemini full moon to follow, which will be a lunar eclipse. So let's show these one at a time. Here's the Scorpio New Moon chart. What do you see? What kind of alignments are you noticing? Do you see that amazingly strong sextile between the Scorpio New Moon at 2317 Scorpio, the sextile with Jupiter at 2315 Capricorn? And of course, Pluto just on hand because Jupiter just had his third exact conjunction with Pluto in this year of 2020. Just a couple days ago, Mars just stationed direct in Aries on November 13th, on Friday the 13th, right? So all this happening leading into the Scorpio New Moon. From somewhere on Earth at this time of the Scorpio New Moon, which where I'm currently sitting in Haiku, was 7:07 p.m. last night, November 14th. From somewhere on Earth, we'd actually have to be in multiple places, but every visible planet was visible. Besides, of course, the moon, because new moon means no moon, unless it's an eclipse. And this one is not. Too far from the node. But if you've been tuning in and taking notes from the beginning, when I was just speaking about my own personal astrology and the truth that here in Hawaii, when I was born, the Scorpio North Node was culminating. My North Node's at 2151 Scorpio. So I'm really feeling personal connections to this new moon because the new moon met at my own personal North Node. And of course, the nodes are from where Earth's point of view, the paths of sun and moon cross, right? And then the full moon to follow in about 15 days, which here in Hawaii, though sadly I won't be here still, November 29th, 11:30 p.m. will be at about 8.5 degrees Gemini. Well, my ascendant's 9.5 degrees Gemini, which is why I call myself Gemini Brett. So I'm feeling a very deep and personal connection to this cycle. Lunar eclipse. We can see this as an eclipse because the moon's so close to the node. I'll get back to that. In the sign of Gemini, at my ascendant, and the Scorpio new moon at my North lunar node. And also I'm a Scorpio sun with a Gemini moon in my nativity. So enough about me, let's talk about us. Well, I guess one thing I will say is some of us will be the moon group that's been meeting for the last new moon and full moon. And something I planned to continue, was actually hoping to do while I was here in Hawaii, but as soon as my feet touched the sacred ground, it was like, check out of that and just tune in and enjoy some time and some space and some family and some adventure and the mana of the Aina, right? The energy, the magic of the land. And it's really important for us to drop in, tune in, right? I think, in fact, I'll maybe show you some photos I took while I was here. One of the great feelings for me in Hawaii is connecting to the magic of the living sky. Oh, looks like I'm still sharing my desktop. So let's just see some images. This one kind of hard to see, but that's the Orion Nebula right there. It's Orion hunting the bull. This is Aldebaran. We'll see some clearer images. That's the eye of the bull, where the coming full moon will align. This is some cloud monster eating Vega and heading for the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Morning magic here, and so often in Hawaii, the power of the rainbow, the magic of the colors. This is, I think, my favorite photo I took, and maybe I'll come back to this and spend some time. This star is a really important star for me here in Hawaii. I met it here in Hawaii. We can't see that star Canopus in California where I live. But again, you see Orion here, and this is Aldebaran, Hoko'ula they call it here, a red star, where the Gemini Lunar Eclipse will align in this cycle, so the moon will turn partially red as well. This is before the new moon, because here you see a crescent moon meeting morning star Venus in the east. There's a fuller frame of that thing where we get to see the crow over here, a wonderful Scorpio Gemini being. I think we'll let this crow guide some of our transmission today. Close up of that moon Venus conjunction. When Venus is a morning star, only the old moon, the waning crescent Hecate's bow, will meet Venus rising before the sun in the east. And always telling us that a new moon will come soon, because Hecate's bow is that sliver crescent in the morning east as the moon is preparing to dive under the beams of the sun to align between Earth and the light in that mysterious place we can never see because it's combust, it's burned up in the solar light. Here's an image of the northern sky, these palm trees behind me, right? This has just been a wonderful place to stay on, and I got an Airbnb here just because of this open view in Haiku, where there's always clouds. But 3 or 4 in the morning, it's kind of the time when it really opens up. And maybe you can tell in this image that we're looking north, and the way to tell is that this is Polaris. And one of the ways to know this is Polaris or Pole Star, North Star, is that this Big Dipper here, this wagon, this chariot, this bear with the pointer stars points to Polaris. So everything's spinning about that point on that lower of the 3 trees, right? So that was a fun connection. Where are we going next? Back to Orion, who's hunting the bull. We don't see in this particular frame. Canopus again below. I think I used a few of these. Yeah, I love that one. With this Milky Way, the brightest star, Sirius. In our day and age, though, Canopus used to be the brightest star, and it said one day will be again, because Sirius is variable in its brightness. So this Milky Way going right to the tree and to the neighbor's beautiful house on the other side of the field here. Here's Orion, the Pleiades, Makaliki, right here in Hawaii. And the sacred calendar of Hawaii is tuned to the solar opposition with the Pleiades, with Makaliki. That it begins the year, although it's like the signature for the time of the beginning of the year, but the year, of course, begins with a very particular moon phase. Not this one. Oh, where is that image? Not this one here, but a very similar look on the other side. It will be the other side of the moon on the bunny's ears, right? The sunset west after the moon-sun alignment, the conjunction, new moon, no moon, because we can't see moon under the beams of the sun. When the moon clears, the light comes back from the rays, moving much faster than the sun does, and that's today or tonight. We see the first sliver crescent moon, which many lunar or luni-solar calendars, like the Hawaiian calendar, or the Hebrew calendar, or the Chinese calendar, they begin not with the actual moon-sun conjunction to begin a month, because that's a no moon, but rather with the first visible moon in the sunset west. And here in Hawaii, depends on the sign, but you can get this amazing just smile of a moon. That's not me tilting the camera to the side or anything. That's a very vertical frame. The moon can rise and set like a perfect smile this close to the equator. A wonderful thing to see. So here again, the Pleiades. This is Hoku'ulu, the eye of the bull, Aldebaran, which means the follower, because it follows the Pleiades through the sky to set in the west. And the Orion, the hunter, follows the bull. Orion is hunting the bull. And this star in our day and age, one of the 4 royal stars, it's known, Aldebaran, will host the Gemini Lunar Eclipse in 2 weeks. And that means if the moon is here for full moon, of course, full moon means moon opposite sun. That means the sun will be opposite this star, Aldebaran, which is opposite the heart of the Scorpion, Antares. So the sun now in late Scorpio, moving into tropical Sagittarius on its way to Capricorn, is at the galactic cross that I often speak about near galactic center. On the other side, and this is another galactic cross, it's easier to see here, where the plane of the solar system, or let's see if I can get another one, maybe here, crosses the plane of the Milky Way. So where is the plane of the solar system? There's the Bull constellation. And following the Bull constellation is the Twins constellation. These are the heads of the twins here. This is Castor and Pollux. How do I know which one's which? Well, if you know their tale, Castor is the mortal twin who dies first, and then his brother Pollux chooses to join his brother in the afterlife, right? So how do we know that this is Castor? Because it dies first. It sets first in the west. This is west. Castor is west of Pollux or Polydeuces. So this is the general shape of the twins here. And then, of course, after the twins comes the crab, and then the lion. And so we can just draw up from Aldebaran. It's really between Aldebaran and the Pleiades that the ecliptic, the path of the sun or the zodiac is. And then it goes right through this star here, Wasat, which is at the kind of middle of the twin Pollux, right? So I can draw the ecliptic like this, and then it goes off screen. So where the ecliptic, the path of the sun, our solar system plane, our local neighborhood, if you will, crosses the Milky Way, our greater neighborhood, the galaxy. Let's call the solar system our neighborhood and the galaxy our city, maybe. Or maybe we could say, let's see, our local territory and then our island. How's that? Or our island and our chain of islands. But that cross right there, that's right in a very powerful place of space that the Dakota people call the sacred hoop. It's here. It's Pleiades and Capella, this very bright star here. Castor and Pollux, the twins, who they saw as the bear's den. And then over here, Procyon, which in the west we see as the little dog. Sirius, the big dog, the current brightest star of our sky. And then Regal, the right foot of Orion, who's here, right? The hunter, or Osiris, right? The Orion Nebula, I think, is the place that our sun comes from. And what the Dakota people say about this, from what I've heard, from what I've read in a wonderful book called Lakota Star Knowledge by Ronald Goodman, is that this place, this cross, it is where our souls come from. And it is the inipi in the sky where we will go to be purified on the way out, where then we walk the spirit road, which is the Milky Way. To a place that sets in the southwest, which would be galactic center. So we're coming to that time of the year where the sun aligns to the galactic center, currently at 27 degrees tropical Sagittarius, or the Golden Gate, or the Galactic Cross on that side of the sky, right in our day and age, featuring an alignment of the solstice points. The south point, 0 degrees tropical Capricorn, is at that Golden Gate Galactic Cross, the place we will go. And 0 degrees tropical Cancer, the north point, is at the Galactic Cross. On the other side, the Silver Gate, the birthplace of souls from which we come, the sacred hoop. And so that's a very powerful thing about the coming full moon of this lunation, which is that it will be right at Hoku'ulu, at Red Star, at Aldebaran, the follower, the eye of the bull, which is at that gateway of the sacred hoop of stars. All right, well, that was a lot. Let's take a breath. I'm realizing that I had started saying one thing that I would like to finish. And I'm trying to find another link to do so. So let's hear the song of the minor birds. The wind of the island. The breath of the goddess. Right. So one thing I had said was that somewhere on Earth, at the time of this Scorpio new moon, which met where I am in Haiku, Hawaii, on Maui, at 7:07 p.m. last night, November 14th, 2020. And it didn't look like this here. I'll show you actually what it looked like locally. I'll find my way to a quadrant house system and put the ground beneath my feet here in Hawaii at the time when Moon met Sun, 2317 tropical Scorpio. The Gemini North Node was about to rise in the east, and the Sagittarius South Node of the Moon about to set in the west, or actually the southwest, a degree that holds the great attractor, and in a place that will feature our next new moon-ish, which will be a total solar eclipse. And maybe I'll tease that a bit at the end here, right? So here in Hawaii, the moon and the sun together in their alignment were below the horizon. Moon met sun after sunset, right? We know on a chart that this is the ground. When we're looking at a quadrant chart, like a Porphyry chart or a Placidus chart or a Regiomontanus or Campanus or any of these charts that are configured to the angles, the horizon and the meridian, yeah, here and here, and the horizontal line, the horizon, is the ground beneath our feet, right? So here in Hawaii, moon and sun had set, and that means we see Jupiter and Saturn above the horizon here in the southwest. It was actually cloudy at the time here. It's kind of the first night last night that I did not see Jupiter and Saturn in the sky. Mars coming up on high in the 11th sign of the chart. Windcast for Hawaii, which begins, of course, with the ascendant, the sign on the rise in the east, or in this case, Gemini rising in the northeast, right? Somewhere else on Earth, this would have happened before sunrise. And none of these visible wanderers, planetas, Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars, which at this time are evening stars following the sun to set in the west, none of them would have been visible in other places on the earth, like, oh, well, let's go see. One place I know, as I said before, Romania is on the opposite side of the earth from Hawaii. Not exactly opposite, because of course Hawaii in the northern tropics would have its antipode, its opposite point of the globe. Well, I'll show you where that is using the power of local space lines. Here's Hawaii or Maui where I am. Yeah.
You have your things out already?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so everything is out.
It is, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, yeah. So I'll just be here. Are they coming soon?
They're here.
Oh, okay, great.
So they can go in now, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and if they need to be out here, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, they'll come and do all the stuff out here as well, so.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for letting me stay a little late.
Okay.
I think you could tell from context what's going on there. Yeah, in fact, I'll be right back. I need to get one thing out from inside. Okie dokie. So this is the moment of the Scorpio New Moon. And these are local space lines, these curves here, which always emanate from a place and then converge at the antipode, the opposite side of the globe, okay? Because Hawaii's in the northern tropics, that's going to happen in the southern tropics. But let me take those local space lines away. And for now, we will look at the astrocartography. And so on the opposite side of the globe from Hawaii, where I can see here that the moon and the sun had already set and the North Lunar Node was about to, something that we noticed in the chart, right? I can see that Neptune's kind of applying to the midheaven, and that's shown by this solid Neptune midheaven line here. Well, where was Neptune about to be at the IC? And the answer is here. This is the opposite side of the world. And here we can see that the moon and the sun were about to rise. They're in the first house if I'm west of those lines. So let's relocate this chart for, well, I don't know, somewhere in Italy. Let's go to Milan, where Uranus was setting and Mercury had already risen. Actually, let's go to that. Yeah, that's fine. Let's go to Milan, Italy, and I'll show you that at that time, somewhere on the opposite side of the world, relocation, that in that place, because the moon and sun meeting here in 2317 Scorpio had not yet risen, that's a place where the current morning stars, who are Venus and Mercury, were visible. Mercury 18 degrees from the sun in a sign of Scorpio, which is actually in the northern hemisphere, a rather visible morning star space. I haven't yet seen Mercury. I've been here in Hawaii for a week, but here where I'm staying, we have a really open view of kind of the northwest. And the south is pretty open in that way too, but the east not so much. His house is over there, and tons of clouds. But tonight I'm going up Haleakala, up to the house of the sun, up where the sky is typically very clear, much less humidity, many less clouds, and I'll get to see that smile of the true new moon, the first visible new moon, as it's celebrated here in Hawaii. And hopefully just get to drink some deep stars, some bright lights in the dark sky tonight. So let's talk about bright lights in the darkness, because that's one way we might think of with this time of the year, Scorpio new moon. And so much of that depends on where you live. Here, Lono, it's the beginning of the rainy months in Hawaii, in the tropics, right? That's true also for places like Tulum, which has a very similar situation to the island of Maui, very similar latitudes on Earth, right? So while Maui is here at 19.5, so is Mexico City. And we can draw that line further through some of the islands of the Caribbean and into Africa and India and such, yeah? So those places anywhere the same distance from the equator will experience the same stars, just at different times as the Earth spins, of course, in a day. All right, so I think I said I would plug this again. I will be teaching astrolocality, astro maps, so we can understand not only how to utilize these maps to go to powerful places in our own personal experience, maybe also in these mundane experiences. I mean, what is it that the Scorpio new moon was culminating here through China, right? And Indonesia, and at the zenith here off the coast of Australia, in the middle of the ocean. What is it that new moon was rising in Africa and Libya and through, I mean, Istanbul, right? Athens, I mean, many powerful centers of our heritage of astrology, right? What is it that the nodes, right, which of course speaks so much to moon, sun, earth, because from Earth's point of view, they're where the paths of the moon and the sun intersect. What is it that they're moving through Brazil at this time, or through Australia, and many other places on Earth, right? So it's cool to connect personally to moments through these powerful astro maps that we can utilize with modern day software, right, in this turning of the ages. And it's also wonderful to see global, what we call mundane applications of astrological moments. And so if you're interested in learning much more about that and really diving deep with them, the great thing about the Oprah retreats, being a track leader, we get to spend, I think, 15 hours in 3 days with our students, and there's small class sizes as well, so we can really connect. I will be having all of my students using free software on their side of this virtual conference during my talk, and also at homework at night, to go cast their own maps, find power places. It's going to be not just teacher in front of the class. It's trickier online like this, but we'll do breakout rooms and small group work, right? So we can really be learning and integrating deep understanding of these astrolocality techniques. That's the idea. So if you're interested in joining the OPA Astrology Conference, virtual conference with 15 different immersion tracks, and I'm very honored for the first time to be leading one of them at an OPA retreat, go to opaastrology.org. And there's a particular site for the conference itself, which I will have to share another time. Then, if you're new to this flow, it's been going for a while now. I was also speaking about the Cosmic Intelligence Agency's Brave New World Symposium. Check that out at cosmicintelligenceagency.com/Brave New World Astrology, which will be a virtual symposium of many my favorite astrologers. And so I'm honored to speak with these amazing beings on November 28th, and I'll be speaking about the Mercury cycle. So a lot of astrology for not much money. So if you're interested, and I suggest becoming a CIA member to make that even more affordable for you, and I suggest becoming an OPA member to make this conference more affordable. There are two communities, astrological communities of fellow starry seekers online that have changed my life, not just in my opportunity to share to wider audiences, but to feel the love of family, of community, of folks who are interested in, similar approach to spiritual awakening that I am, and also just to learn a ton of astrology. We know one of the great gifts of astrology is that it is never ending. We will be learning forever, right? And I think the part of me that has chosen this Gemini moniker is most satisfied with astrology for that very reason. All right, I'm a lifelong learner. I hope you are too. If you are, you'll enjoy a long flow like this one today, which is taking many roads along its way, because information, please, right? And that, I will say, is actually aligned with one side of magic. Now, look, the truth is, every sign has its magic. No doubt about that. Every sign has its passion. Every sign has its desire. Every sign has its aliveness. Every sign has its inquisitiveness, right? Every sign has its dreams and etc. But I do often, and I'm biased, associate magic with the signs of Scorpio and Gemini. And Scorpio would be, I think, what we think of as magical. Yeah, and I really think that's actually kind of heart sauce. That it's power, aliveness, right? The depth of my feelings, these things in heartbreak or heart joy that just open me up and transform me. And it is in that sense, and we teach this often in the so-called natural zodiac or the zodiacal order, where many of us will begin with 0 degrees Aries. So one thing I often do when I present charts like this, and I'm speaking not just to folks in haiku, Hawaii, or from haiku, is choose the house system called 0 Aries or the natural zodiac, which in a way, though 0 Aries certainly was rising someplace on Earth in the moment that the moon met the sun in the late degrees of Scorpio for Scorpio New Moon last night, in a way it allows us to speak more globally. I'll say this, that the tropical signs of the zodiac are Earth's houses. In fact, once long ago, they were called the terrestrial houses. And there's a lot to say about why that is and how that works. But today's not the day to do so. And I need to take a break and just talk to this cat over here for a second. So I'm going to mute myself and just let you dig Hawaii. I'll be right back. Oh, maybe I left that not muted, so you heard all of that. Okay. Anyway, um, so we were speaking about magic. And I mean, one side of magic really is kind of a mental construct, you know? Let's go over here, friends. It's the idea that, you know, we call these things spells for a reason. You might have heard these things in many of the traditions. It said that, like, you know, if you can know an entity's name, that you can no longer be overpowered by it. Right? It was just a kind of a brilliant thing, but see how that is an air sign thing. That's a word-based thing. It's an information-based thing, right? And for me, that really is like Gemini magic. It's the idea of spells. It's the truth that our interaction with our atmosphere through the narration of our words and understanding and inquisitive nature, the force of learning, really determines so much of our experience, right? I mean, literally the way that we voice a thing, or even to ourselves, like narrate a happening, will determine our experience of that happening. Agreed? And that's very much like an air sign. I would say even of the air signs, maybe most particularly a Gemini type of experience. So yeah, we will be having a Gemini full moon in this particular lunation. And that to me feels like that side of magic, whereas the Scorpio, the sign, of course, which hosted the new moon, magic is much more about the depth of the empowered heart. Right? I mean, sometimes it just feels like the death of the heart, because Scorpio, as we know, is a very transformational sign. Now, that's often usually taught through the lens of the Northern Hemisphere seasonal experience, where, of course, tropical Scorpio is the bare branches, the leaves have fallen, we're going into the darkness. We had our cross quarter last week where the sun finds 15 degrees tropical Scorpio, exactly halfway between autumnal equinox in the Northern Hemisphere and winter solstice. To be more global, I should say, Libra equinox and Capricorn solstice, or west equinox and south solstice. Um, but yeah, the Scorpio is often expressed from that seasonal, you know, transmission of death and rebirth, because we're going into the darkness. The veil is thin, you know, in that cold time. We're in the setting, the falling sun. We're kind of called to connect to the fallen ones and the buried ones and the ancestors and all of this, right? Now, that does not mean it can't be expressed just as beautifully from the Southern Hemisphere experience. I think we should actually be careful not to completely, like, hemisphere basis seasonally our expression or understanding or connection to of in connection to these archetypes, right? Um, and so this is the place where I would usually get into some technical expression of the directional zodiac, but I don't think today is the time to do so. Especially because I've got a meeting here in a bit for NCGR. So, magic, power, why is Scorpio this way? Another way we can often get into that is if we speak from the natural zodiac, where we say the first sign is Aries. Why? Why did I say earlier that the tropical signs are the Earth's houses, the terrestrial houses? Well, that point of the tropical zodiac, the Pisces-Aries cusp, is due east always, in every moment, always from the center of Earth, where we are all connected. So in that way, it's like the global ascendant. And in that sense, Scorpio is the 8th sign. And we move through the great ancient 12-step program, the wheel of life called the zodiac. When we get to 8, it is a place of merging with the others, which is the 7th, the one opposite the first, who is me. The 7th is the we, and the 8th is when the we goes deep. And of course, it is those times that often invoke our most magical and powerful transformation of soul, right? The depth, the sexuality, the passion, the merging, right? All of these things that happen, the heartbreak, which is the heart breaking open, right? These are some of the gifts of the Scorpio mysteries, of these mysteries of merging with others. And yeah, Scorpio is not something typically that's done alone. I mean, it can be me and my environment, right? Me and spirit. But typically, Scorpio is something that opens up through my engagement with other people, another person, whether it's a lover or, well, let me leave that there for now. Well, no, let's continue because traditionally the seventh of others is not just me and my lover, but it can be me and a great friend, me and an enemy even. And I think that's important, right? So the things that just really stir you, the uncontrollable forces that sometimes we don't have the tools to respond to. And maybe we'll fall into our reactions. And it's been a pretty charged time astrologically, as you know, and probably we're really getting a taste of our reactions. So well, hopefully you've experienced that. Actually, I think that's really written in the stars right now. When we see our reactions and we're conscious of them, then we can sit with how we want to transform and try to guide this thing a little bit more consciously, if you will, but also the transformation itself. So much of it will come through our surrender of the conscious mind, and just let it go. And I think this particular lunation is much about that. It has been a hard year, mysterious year, confusing year, painful year, much more for some than for others. It has been a scary year for many of us. It's a scary year for me, and I think scary years for us for different reasons, that's for sure. One thing that most scares me is the lockdown of information exchange and the censorship and cancel culture on one level. But, you know, the way that the media is choosing to cancel, right? News. What is news? Who gets to determine, right? Like, that, to me, that is the scariest thing that, like, Orwell predicted long ago and warned us about, and yet it's still happening in the flow. And I think there's an important reason. I'm interested in this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, of course, in the sign of Capricorn, something I've been watching the recent time since they've stationed direct Jupiter, starting to close that gap and chase Saturn down. And of course, we know that Jupiter and Saturn will conjoin on December 21st at the solstice gateway. The last time they connected in Capricorn was 1960, and it took some years after that for the free speech movement at that time, the civil rights movement at that time, and maybe we're getting a kind of an advanced expression of that at this time. Now, we'll see. But and the anti-war movements of the 60s, but it was the mid-60s, right? Not 1960 itself. So I think that there's resonance in a seed that's being planted at a time that will sprout in beautiful ways, that will continue some of the essence of what the great revolutions of the 1960s were about. This is a time where I think the greatest way that we can serve that particular revolution is to stop trying to understand what it is, when it will end, when it, right, which is a challenging thing for an astrologer, right? Because I think we expect that that's what people expect of us. And maybe it's what they do, and maybe we need to prognosticate and offer a list of dates in this. But there's something at this time of just surrendering it all, surrendering to the pain, surrendering to the fear, surrendering to the idea that I can't figure it out, and just let the heart feel, deeply feel. Scorpio is about getting really, really real in the feely feels. These are the places where we can allow the waves of our feelings, right, to run the show. And it's not what you think about your feelings, right? It's not what you feel about your thinkings. These are different forces, and they're very highlighted, and I think very magically so, in this particular lunation, Scorpio New Moon, Gemini Full Moon. And that Gemini Full Moon is a lunar eclipse, something that we can see because the full moon, moon opposite sun, of course, in the zodiac, is close enough to the lunar nodes, the place where, from Earth's point of view, the paths of moon and sun cross. Yeah? New moon has to be within about 12 degrees. Sorry, a full moon has to be within about 12 degrees of the nodes for an eclipse in some partiality. This will be a partial eclipse, right? We can actually go see. I'll take you to my favorite eclipse sandbox online, oops, which is moonblink.info. And when you go to Moonblink, you can find the button on the left that says eclipse search, or that will take us to a URL. That's kind of a quicker way to get here. I'm realizing where I'm standing, the internet is slow. I hope that that's not messing with the live feed here. Well, let me just share for you with you now that this will be a partial lunar eclipse. Oh, looks like it just came in. Okay. So moonblink.info/eclipse/search. And then there you can type in any year and it will show you all the eclipses of the year. You can see there's more advanced search functions as well, which is just wonderful because we want information, Gemini, but what are we going to do with it, right? Are we going to ride the waves of the things we can learn and know away from the present moment now, or are we going to let that data, if you will, open up more of a powerful experience of the now? That's the challenge, and it's very open in the gateway of this current cycle. So here is the November 30th lunar eclipse, the sign of Gemini, and you'll see it says Penumbral, which, friends, basically looks like a full moon. Anywhere here, the moon will be visible. It will be nighttime. Anywhere in the shadow, interestingly, it seems kind of backwards, it's daytime. This is where the eclipse will be most visible. Hold on one second, please. So sorry, friends. Okay. Right. So a penumbral lunar eclipse basically looks like a full moon. It's like the moon going through the shadow of Earth, right? So what you see in this diagram, the red is the actual shadow of the Earth's body. And then this is the shadow of the Earth's atmosphere, which doesn't cast much of a shadow. So this is like a very full penumbral eclipse, moon moving through the Earth's umbra, it's called. But I mean, I went actually here on Haleakala to see like a penumbral eclipse in like the place on Earth where it was most visible some years ago, and to me it looked like a full moon. So the good news, if you're an eclipse maniac like myself, let's say an eclipse lunatic like myself, the good news about a penumbral lunar eclipse is it means that the solar eclipse that either preceded it, or in this case, to follow, is a total solar eclipse. And I'll speak about that down the line because that's the new moon for next month. The Sagittarius New Moon of this year will be a total solar eclipse, but a pretty long one. It's, oh no, it's not a long one. 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Total solar eclipse that will be visible on Earth with your feet on the ground only here in southern Chile and Argentina, where you have some of the best dark skies, weatherless, like amazing star viewing of all time. So some folks are really going to get an amazing show. All right, so let me just look at these charts with you for a minute, and I'll try to be quick, which certainly has not been the flow so far. For me, I always love to start with the archetypes, right? What is the Scorpio about? What does Scorpio want? So what is it when Moon, with her own particular energies and desires, aligns with the Sun with his own particular energies and desires? How, in a sense, like almost like child and parent, or like, I see them as two parts of one thing. But anyway, how do they combine to give us some intentions about what's what? And Mercury and Scorpio, so we have that, in a sense, Mercury, who can be very Gemini, right? in Scorpio, we have that blend also that we see in the Scorpio New Moon, Gemini Full Moon Lunation. So I love that too. So it's like, we want our mind and the heart. Venus will ingress Scorpio during this lunation. So we see here at the full moon time, Venus is already at 11 degrees Scorpio, and Mercury hasn't left yet, right? So it's not just the moon and the sun that are aligning, but we have those interior decorators of Venus and Mercury kind of dancing through the sign of Scorpio during this month. Venus, who's now in her home sign of Libra, a very strong alignment to the great star Spica. And she will move into Scorpio. Right now she's doing the balance, diplomacy, equality, harmony, beauty, like non-hierarchical, equal relating, the scales. And Scorpio's job is to cannonball on one of those scales. So it gets all supposedly out of whack or experientially out of whack. But we realize when we come back into balance that maybe that diplomacy from before had us keeping the peace in such a way that forced us to suppress our own needs, our own feelings. And Scorpio is here to rectify that in many regards. It doesn't always feel good, right? But the journey of the scales going all out of whack is the experience of the depths and the heights of the heart. And once we come back into equilibrium, we've had this authentic experience if we've allowed this for ourselves. So again, that tends to happen through surrender or really just releasing the conscious blocks. Sometimes that can look like the manners we were taught. So we can be raw and authentically express the powers of the heart, because Scorpio is about that. It's about the deepest experience and expression of passion, desire, excitement, the art of the heart. So in conjunct Venus at this time, actually the semi-sextile, though interestingly, I always call these magic squares. The new moon, you can see in that pretty strong semi-sextile, 30 degrees with Venus, is sextile with Jupiter and Pluto, right? And modern astrologers, associate Scorpio with Pluto. And so that sextile is really helpful in that sense for Scorpio to be guided by that agent of transformation. And interestingly, according to classical astrology theory, neighboring signs are blind to one another. So it's like Scorpio, in a sense, is free from the needs, the desires of balance. Now, that doesn't sound so great, but it can actually be really helpful for us to go deep. And a cool thing, this is what I call a magic square, a magic mirror, is that while neighboring signs don't see eye to eye, they don't see one another. Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, right, to a lesser extent geometrically, but certainly by sign, Capricorn sees both Scorpio by sextile and Libra by square. So in a sense, Libra, Venus, who's really not needing to see these beings from a classical perspective, she's at home, she's comfortable, she's getting some news of who they are in this invisible space, and they're getting some news of her from these Capricorn beings. And so what does it mean? For me, it's this. If you want to go deep, you've got to release. That's actually easier to do when you have solid ground beneath your feet. You don't want to float away. You want to be rooted, and that's into the traditions, the ancient ones, the elders. It's so important here in Hawaii and anywhere that has maintained its connection to the true ways that, moderns like me have been taught are indigenous or ancient or whatever. It's just the right way to be humans in communities where we have elders to speak to. And for me, that's what Capricorn is in its natural expression. Because that natural expression has been stripped from much of our conscious experience, it's been replaced by government and police, and we see how that's going now. But you can see in that sextile there's some agreement. Now, agreement doesn't always mean easy. I mean, it can be that our fear of corporations, government, police, and that kind of modern expression of what I'll call shadow Capricorn is assisting our transformation. Do you see what I mean? The tension is how that kind of energy of the rules and whatnot is keeping us from feeling the love of peace and harmony. That's all in that square, in that tension. This is Venus square Pluto, especially Venus square Jupiter, Saturn. That's all happening in this lunation, right? They will assist the Scorpio intention to dive deep. So how are you connected to others? Libra, how are you connected to culture, or the Capricorn Cancer axis? And how does it allow you to transform? Mars now still having just recently stationed direct on on Friday the 13th of November after 2 months of retrograde motion. It's a still Aries Mars, a very powerful place of the zodiac, right? And Mars will start accelerating from zero. You can see it gets to do that pretty quickly. But there's something about letting our fire stand still so we can be in this kind of conscious contemplation of our own transformation, which likely will say just get rooted into the true ground, into the voice of the earth, into the culture of the ancient ones. Speak with your elders. Be in awareness of your tribe, of those that can assist you if you feel like you're going too far over the edge. But in that ability to be rooted, now we can bring the big water and the tree won't fall. Yeah. I think that's a huge statement for this new moon time. And I think it's a very personal thing. Well, a personal experience from our interpersonal, our relational connections. We see the trine of the Scorpio new moon with Neptune. Now both moon and sun are separating from Neptune at the time of this new moon, in a sense separating from Jupiter and applying to Saturn, although perfect, right? But that trine, I think, is a really beautiful thing where we're encouraged by Neptune to get into the heart, into our feelings, to know that everybody's going through something. It doesn't have to be our own experience, but that should help us not be afraid to ask for help or afraid to go there, right? In fact, knowing that if I go there, that actually helps the other go there. So sometimes we're not in the greatest service to harmony by faking it, right? Well, I would say always. And sometimes it's actually if I let myself go, right, it will encourage the other to go. And then we can be on that other side of the tidal wave in a place where we find more peace and some more understanding of balance. And that opens up the gateway of the great why of Sagittarius. The password to Sagittarius is why. And it's a question we most ask when things die. Now, that doesn't have to actually be a loved person in your life, but what is dying for you in this weird year of lockdowns and such that's asking you to take a new adventure in this month that's really going to come alive, but it wants to do so most in the magic of the heart. We love Mercury opposite Uranus in this chart, and that will be aligning very soon in its perfection. For the third time, right? Because Mercury's done this retrograde dance and aligned to Uranus, and so it's kind of finishing this long conversation, longer than usual, of bringing the mind of the heart, if you will, or the heart of the mind, this kind of Scorpio Mercury in opposition with this very revolutionary being Uranus, who we see now a true black moon, Lilith. And by the way, moon opposite Lilith means moon close to Earth, means moon traveling fast, big super moon, and so big waves, literally. Right, literally biggest tides of the year when we have our super new moons or super full moons. That's moon close to Earth, moon at perigee. Currently, the perigee would be at the new moon alignment last night. The perigee would have been 11 degrees Scorpio. So you can see how close moon was to that perigee point. That's where moon is closest to the Earth, biggest, brightest, fastest. New moon brings big tides. These are the biggest tides of the year. Okay. All right, so let's just take a quick look at the Gemini chart. If you guys are on my mailing list, and you can be on my mailing list at GeminiBrett.com, there's a place to sign up. I'll be sending out an invitation to have a moon group in a couple weeks to speak about this Gemini lunar eclipse. Very powerful personal degree for me, maybe the most personal degree. My ascendant is 936 Gemini, so really excited to see what comes alive for me and to share that in group and to have that held and to hold space with others. And we'll do these breakout groups where we can really connect in community and support one another. I've got to wrap this up. I do want to point out the moon quincunx with Venus in these Scorpio Gemini degrees, the Gemini moon calling on Mercury's teachings, who's in Scorpio at the time. We really feel these powerful connections. You see Jupiter and Saturn coming to the gateway of Capricorn and Aquarius. Well, they won't move until December time. But it's coming pretty soon to a theater called You, that Jupiter and Saturn align on December 21st, 2020, something we've long been looking forward to. We see Neptune squaring the lunar nodes at this time. That brings a lot of confusion around the soul path, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. We really want to get into this Scorpio magic of the powerful, authentic experience and expression of desire, passion, aliveness. And that's really best offered by letting ourselves go. So we do see the inquisitive Gemini moon and the inquisitive Gemini north node, right? It's not like we can be entirely away from the mind. But what I'll say most importantly, that the general theme for me in this lunation altogether is we can release our mind to truly feel, and through our feelings we will remember how to think in a more powerful way, where we can do that magical living in the conscious mind who understands. We call it spells for a reason. Nice to connect with you today. Thank you for your presence, patience in this whole thing, with my interminglings and dealings. Let's say actually one more thing that's important, right? So we want to go deep. We want to talk about magic. We might feel interrupted by the atmosphere, and the people and the places around us know they're here to inspire more of our aliveness, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot for me to contemplate that I'm not going to voice right now. But actually I will, around privilege and gratitude and many other themes. You know, I think you can, especially in this great year of transformation and revolution and education of 2020, kind of, you know, follow me in this invitation that I've been invited to kind of go there now if you'd like, or go wherever that inspires you to go. So that's going to be work for me to do for a half an hour before my next thing begins, which is to really think about that deep power of engagement with another, which of course, when we really bring a conscious mind to it, is about not only what am I bringing through my own experience and the way I was raised and my own privilege, if you will, or lack thereof, whatever it may be, but the other person's. Who are they? Where are they coming from? How do I meet this person? And let's do it first in the heart, just experiencing somebody, like not even trying to judge a book by the cover or even seeing the book, just feeling. And then start communicating and speaking to one another, and understand that if we allow ourselves to really see one another and share our own needs, that's a huge part of Gemini, and then allow the other to share their own needs, that's a huge part of Libra, I'll say, then that Scorpio dynamic is so much more powerful. There's so much more growth and aliveness, and that for me is the principal theme of this lunation, which we now are in, which here on Hawaii begins with the first visible smiling moon in the sunset west, which I am very excited to see today. And if I get a good glimpse, I'll try to take a picture to share with you. Thanks for looking into the pictures with me today. Love and planets to you, friends. Do sign up for my mailing list at GeminiBrett.com. I'll send you links about the coming OPA retreat and the Cosmic Intelligence Agency's Brave New World Symposium, and something also interesting that I just tuned into here on the island that I'm excited to share when it's ready to be shared sometime soon. And I'll also share the invite for a free gathering. Donations gratefully accepted always. You can find a GeminiBrett.com donate button there too at the homepage. But I'll share a link with you to connect and register for a Zoom video community moon group to dive deep into the Gemini moon and maybe speak a little bit more about the Scorpio New Moon and where we're at right now. So allow your fear to help you flow down a road you maybe wouldn't ever go, and there you will find a new way to mind and speak the language of powerful spells. See you in space, friends.